Welcome back, class. I still have Mocha, who's trying to, so if the camera vibrates or knocks, I apologize. She's still being rambunctious. She's getting better, I think, about being separated. But let's actually talk about section 1.5. 1.5 is where we start talking about bias and sampling. We don't always mean to have a bias in sampling, but sometimes it happens. So let's talk about it and go straight to it. There it is. All right, so let's just repeat some information. What is our goal in sampling? To put it blunt, it's to obtain information. Let's see. Ooh, I like that color. All right, but we are trying to obtain information about a population. And we do that through a sample. I don't know if you guys can hear, doesn't she sound pitiful? She only acts this way when I sit down to start to make a video. But we want the sample to give us an idea about what's going on in the population. That's the whole gist of it. However, if the results of the sample do not represent the population, in other words, if our sample doesn't reflect a true image of the population, then we have an issue. And that issue is a bias. Now, we have three main sources of biases in sampling. One is the sampling bias. And guess what? That's the definition. Right there. A sampling bias means that the technique that we used was incorrect. There was a problem with it. And our technique favored one party over another, or one characteristic of the population, right? One way we do that is under coverage. So when we have under coverage, it means we pull more of one group versus another. Now, remember, I said before, there's times I will bring in some touchy matters of statistics, and it's not to upset, cause any issues or insult. Don't care a lot about people with their politics. I don't. But politics is strife. It is loaded with statistics. So it's a prime place to talk about it. And one of the things I have busted a lot of under coverage is in statistics, is in politics. So a lot of times when people start quoting me statistics, I'm like, show me your work. Show me your data. Because if you're not willing to show me your data and your information or how you did it, it means you're trying to hide something. And one of the things I busted many years ago, and I've found it's happened since then, was back when Bush was president, and depending on which network you checked into, was his popularity. And I got to looking at it and I thought, this sounds odd. Because it didn't sound right. And see, a lot of times with a statistician or even just normal people, if it doesn't sound right, it's when you start to get that question. Remember, a lot of times, why do we do statistics and analysis and studies? Because we got a question. Sometimes the questions start with, that doesn't sound right. And what I busted them doing was how they pulled the people. And what they did was, you would think if you're going to pull the people by demographics of the political standing, you would want to get at least 50-50 on the Republican Democrats, or even maybe 30-30, like 10 for the Green Party, 10 for Libertarian, some type of breakup that reflects the population. But at least 50-50. What I discovered is that they underpolled one group and they overpulled the other. There's your undercoverage. Guess what? They did it again when Obama was president. It's a common practice. As I said, I'm not pointing one side or the out, pointing values, but they did it again with Obama. Guess what? When Bush was president, they had under coverage for the Democratic voters on the polls of saying how popular he was. And then when Obama was president, they underpolled or had under coverage of Republican voters. Both sides are guilty of it. It's the reason I'm like making sure you guys understand. I'm not pointing one side out or the other. It's a common practice. Under coverage is used if you want to make something look favorable. You make sure those that are behind it or in favor of it, you make sure you get. This is a way how we can skew statistics and studies. If I want to make something look popular, I'm going to make sure that I pull the people that are in favor of whatever topic it is and undercover and use undercoverage for people who are against it. So it makes it look, all right? So when they tell you that statistics lie, they're right. We have tricks that we do. And if anything you get out of this class is understanding where the tricks lie. As I tell students, I'm not really teaching you to be statisticians. I'm teaching you to be cynics. Because it's not just done in politics. It's done in a lot of things. And undercoverage is one way of how we do it. I'm going to make sure that I have more people that are in favor for whatever topic than those that are against it. I'm going to have undercoverage. Sneaky. All right. So here's some examples of undercoverage. Guess what? The first one was the 1936 presidential election, Roosevelt versus Landon. They polled telephone directors and automobile owners. It turns out most Republicans were on the list, not a lot of Democrats. They miscalled that election over that. Telephones are not valid to use anymore, especially now. Telephone polls really are weak because a lot of times they use people with landlines. And think. I bet right now, stop and internally think, do you have a landline? I don't. Not where I live now. I do back at the country. I own a farm out in the country. The reason why I have a landline in the country, I don't get cell service. I get very poor cell service. So I have to have a landline for emergency reasons. But how many people don't have a landline? And a lot of pollers, this is one way how they can tweak polling. Think about who does still have landlines. Think about it. Your elderly, people who aren't quite tech savvy, people that like me live in the country that cell phones don't always work. I have both a cell phone and a landline, but I'm not, my place I stay up here in Marion. Yeah, I just got a cell phone. I get great cell service here, but I don't down in the country. So there's reasons why people have landlines, but it's getting fewer and fewer people have landlines. Well, they pull that way because they're looking for a special demographic. When they use a landline poll, they're looking for a special population because that population tends to vote the same way, right? So, couple examples of why does it always happen? Because frames, remember we talked about this. What is a frame? A frame is a list of people or a list of subjects. Well, frames aren't always easily obtained. So we go with what is convenient. And remember, we talked about when you do stuff by convenience, it's not typically good. Well, sometimes because frames not being easy to get, we go with what's convenient. All right. So number two. Number two. It's called a non-response bias. And if you go back up here, that's number two on the list. We're just following right along. All right, I am guilty of a non-response bias because one, I know how statistics is done. I know how polling is done, and I understand a lot of times you're going to meet, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. I understand the questions. So a lot of times I won't respond to a survey. Click, nope. A lot of times, day and age, people don't want to be bothered with a survey. I'm not going to. I'm too busy to answer a 5-minute survey. So there's many reasons why we won't answer surveys anymore. So example being, Literary Digest mailed out 10 million questionnaires and only received 2.3 million back. That's less than 25%. It's a 23% response. That's not a high response out of 10 million people. So here's ways that how we improve non-response bias, the non-response bias. I call the first one the nag feature. It's not exactly what the true name of it is, but it's what I refer to as nag them. In other words, ask again. Send the survey out a second time to those who didn't answer. How many times have you seen a survey and you click no, just ignore it like in your email, and then 2 days later you get it again, and then you get it again? That's what I jokingly call the nag. It's like, okay, fine. If I ask you enough, sometimes I'll wear you down to where you'll answer. All right. Sometimes by asking again, I may ask it first time via email, second time by phone. Sometimes I'll change up the methods of how I ask. Second reason, we explain the importance of the survey. You know, if you tell me the real reason, like I'll be honest, if I hear from a statistics student, hey, I'm working on this statistic assignment, it's a project, I need to survey, you already got me. You don't even have to tell me what the survey is about. I will stop and take time because I understand I'm an educator, I'm a statistics educator. And yes, I've sent many students out to do surveys. I have. So you know what, if I'm willing to send a student out to do a survey, I will partake in that type of survey for a student because I understand they're doing the grind work, taking the survey and all that, going out and beating the streets. I will play along. But a lot of times, if you're stopped by, hey, I got a quick survey, it's for the, oh, you guys haven't noticed yet, I have quite a collection of Squishmallows that are all Bigfoots and Yetis. Thank my daughter. These are the small ones. The big ones are actually upstairs. But let's say that I'm out surveying the belief of Bigfoot. And it's because I'm trying to get funding to save Bigfoot. I'm just making something off the top of my head, guys. But as I'm sitting there explaining it to you, you're either going to laugh at me or say, oh, yeah, we need to save and protect him. Yeah, I get it. So when you hear the reason behind like wildlife, hey, we're trying to save, what you're feeling on, we pull on something that you yourself may be passionate on. And once we hear the reason behind it, we're more apt to answer the survey. Now, reason 1 and reason 2 are ways to improve your non-response bias. Nagging doesn't work. Explaining doesn't work. We offer incentives. And yeah, I put money. I don't know about you, but I have received many of survey offers. Answer this quick 15-minute survey and win and enter into the possibility of winning a $250 gift card. You have to see anybody get that $250 gift card, but we see that. Oh yeah, I'll spend a few minutes and I might get that $250. We see dollar signs. Win a free, enter this and answer this survey and enter into the possibility of winning a free trip. It's still money. I've actually received one that, or I've seen more than once, we'll pay you if you answer these surveys. Yep, they'll pay you. So we start offering money. Remember before, reason why we don't survey the entire population, because it costs too much. When we do surveys, we really try to avoid this last one. Right? And the last one, response bias. Now, the response bias comes in many different forms. And it's because we don't always answer the way to reflect our true feelings. And the types are listed below, the first one being an interview error. An interview error a lot of times happens by how the question's asked. And when I'm in a classroom, I like to do this because I get people kind of like giggle at me. I'll walk up to them and I'll act like I have pad and paper in front of me, and I look at them and I'm like, you like dogs, right? You really like dogs because you don't like cats. You're not a cat person. You like dogs, right? Well, just by how I'm asking the question on the survey, whether or not you like dogs or cats, I'm letting you know that I am a dog person. You already kind of knew that because of Mocha. I babysit dog, and I also have 2 little Papillons. Considering I'm sitting here with 3 dogs, Yeah, I'm a dog person. Muck is the big one. The other two are little 9-pound dogs, and they're like just snoozing. She's the one that gets rambunctious. She's also the youngest. But by the way we ask questions, we can, it's like, how do you see someone who's really excited about dogs? You hate to tell them, I hate dogs. Maybe you're a snake person. You don't like either one, but you want to, yeah, that's a little weird. Yeah, I guess I like dogs good enough. But is that your true feeling? No, but you're a little bit swayed because I'm excited. So, how do we keep from having interview bias or interview error? One, we use trained professionals. A lot of times these are third-party people who have no skin in the game. They could care less on how you feel, or they've been trained not to show any type of emotion. They may walk up to you, that same question. I'll look at you very stone-faced. Do you prefer dogs or cats? No emotion, no skin in the game. So we will be friendly. They will be friendly, the trained professionals, because they want to keep you a comfort. We don't want to be too stoic to where it's like, hey, this person's, ice queen here. No, we're going to be friendly and this and that, but we're not going to give our emotions away on the questions. We're going to be polite, courteous, and professional. All right. Misrepresented answers. I sum this one up very easily. People lie. And I'm guilty. I am guilty because, I'll tell you again, I don't care about your politics, but if I get a political survey and you've caught me to where, okay, I'll answer your questions. I understand the minute you tell me who you're affiliated with or who's doing the survey, how you're wanting me to answer. Also, by the phrasing of the questions. That's number 3. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. Which way you're really wanting me to answer the questions. So I'll tell you what you want to hear. So guess what? If the DNC calls me, I am all in on anything you want to tell me about DNC and Democratic Party. If the RNC calls me, yep, I'm right there. Yes, yes. Let's go. Let's go Trump, or see, I guess Haley, who is running. Haley, I'm not really paying attention right now. Is in the skin in the game. Yes, yes, I will answer the question the way the surveyor thinks they should. Because why? A lot of people are getting more and more, it's none of your business how I am going to vote or how I feel about. A lot of really passionate people, be honest, but a lot of us, yeah, what goes on in that ballot box is between me and that ballot. So that is one real example that's happening more and more. Because remember, we talked about how sometimes the polls are wrong. The polls are not calling things correct anymore. It's because more and more people are lying to the pollsters. We just mistrust them. So, why is it that we mistrust them? It's because we've learned about the wording of questions. Questions need to be neutral and balanced. However, there are times that we can persuade your answer by the wording of the questions. Or number 4 and number 3 actually go hand in hand, because the ordering of questions leading up to the wording of the questions with the ordering of questions, I'm going to start asking questions that's going to embed a thought in your head. To where all of a sudden, when I get to the real question that I'm really trying to survey, I may have asked you 5 questions prior to that. And to where when I get to that last question, you're kind of, well, I guess, yeah, I guess. I mean, because now I've already got the idea embedded in your head. It's another form of subliminal messaging. All right. So wording can lead answers. So how do we avoid it? Questions need to be balanced. And asked in multiple ways. You ever notice when you're taking a survey, you're saying, man, I could have just answered that question. Well, you did, but we're double checking you. I may ask it one way and then turn around and ask it in a negative way to see if you're going to give me the opposite answer. So in other words, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Do you believe in the death penalty? Well, if you said no right off the bat, I'm going to turn around and say, do you believe in people getting life in prison instead of the death penalty? Or do you believe no one should get the death penalty? It's the same type of question. That is, the verbiage has been changed just a little bit, but I'm still asking the same question. All right. So we ask in more than one way. This keeps us to avoid the wording. Doesn't always work. Sometimes that verbiage, I'll be honest, yeah, they still use it to make sure that you're answering the way they want. All right. As for the ordering of questions, they should be random to keep it from happening. But most of the time when we do an ordering of questions, we really are doing a bias. So in other words, if I ask the questions in one order for person A, I really should ask it in a different order for person B. All right. So I should keep it a little bit on the random side. Type of question. Type of questions. I don't know about you. We've all had this true, false, yes, no. I just asked one. So do you believe in the death penalty? That's a yes, no question. It's called a closed question. What if your feeling is, well, yeah, I do, but in only certain cases. I'm not giving you a chance to explain it. Yes, no. Do you believe it or not? So how do we avoid it? Do you ever know some surveys that give you yes, no questions, and afterwards, please explain your answer? We're giving you the opportunity with an open-ended question. Well, if I could type, or an essay question. Explain yourself. So that alleviates some of the bias. All right. I don't know about you, but I've done surveys before that's A, B, C, D. It's a multiple choice question. Well, I really don't like any of the answers. There's your bias. All right. All right. Another form of bias is data entry. All right. There's the answer. This is an unintentional bias, because when we do surveys and such, well, it's got to get into the computer one way or another, which typically requires a human being. And none of us are perfect. We make errors. An example is data entry 39 versus 93. We flip two numbers. I don't know about you. I have done that many a times. It's like, oh crap. How about spelling? We've all like flipped letter. It's easy to do. So data entry happens. It's unintentional, but it is a form of bias because it can sway an outcome of a survey. It's unintentional. All right. So a census, which has, we're to do a full population census, we have confusing questions and trying to think how to phrase this. Confusing and all incomplete. So these are errors that now got this wrong. I'm reading what the question, what the statement, what the definition is. Non-sampling errors results from a bias that's one, the non-response, data entry. These are things that we didn't get a true answer, but it wasn't because it was actually intentional. A non-sampling bias over non-response could be a homeless person on the census. Where do you mail the census to? So those are types of non-sampling errors. All right. See, is blank as a result that is any results from the sampling estimate about a population? That's just flat out sampling error. Because we miscalculated the population. All right. So let's talk about these errors in sampling. Now, remember, how do we calculate a sampling error? It's the difference between the statistic and the parameter is the amount of error. A statistic really should match a parameter. Now, do you remember what a statistic is? The statistic is the numerical summary of a sample where the parameter is the statistical, or it's the numerical summary of a population. Same definition. The difference is one is against a sample, one is against a population. Again, how do I remind you guys to remember it? S to S, P to P. All right. So say that you want to estimate the average starting salary for the recent nursing graduates from Marion Technical College. The recent graduating class had 40 graduates. You conduct a simple random sample of 8 students and found that the average salary was $59,052. Assume that all the students told the truth. In other words, they gave you their exact salary. And that the sampling methods were done correctly. Well, first off, what's the type of error is it? What type of bias is it? What's a sampling bias? Because we're only asking students from Marion Tech. There was nothing really kind of random about it. And we're assuming that they were honest. So we could have a non-sampling error. Because that really isn't a very good, we only did 40 from the same graduating class. Why don't we do, or we did 8 from the same graduating class? Well, why don't we pull from other graduating class? It's the way we did it in general was not a good way. So that's the reason why we call it non-sampling. So what is the error? Well, the sampling error itself is the difference between what we found. By the way, that is the average or the mean. That is a statistic. Minus the parameter, which is the population mean of 53. It is the difference between the two, which is about that much money. Slightly off. And again, if they lied, well, what type of sampling would that be? Well, remember, a non-sampling is the biases, and you can go back and even drill down further. It's a response bias even further because it's a misrepresented. So we could say this is a non-sampling error, and more specifically, it's a response bias. People lie. Maybe the person felt that oh man, I really don't make this much, but I'm afraid everybody else is making more than this. They don't know what everybody else is making, so we want to boost ourselves, make ourselves look better, or make ourselves look like it wasn't as bad as we said. All right. So 2 through 4, read through them, pause it, write down your answers. First, determine the type of bias, and then suggest a remedy. We've talked through these. Pause the video, read through them, and then come back. But I'm going to keep going so that when you come back, you don't feel the blip. All right. So number 2, we have a sampling bias. All right. It wasn't random. He just said he selects 10 homes in the southwest corner. What if the southwest corner is the more higher end homes? We know that in cities and such that there are certain areas that you've got nicer homes, and certain areas it's not quite, it's more impoverished. So we have a sampling bias. We didn't pull a nice random sample. All right. So how could we correct this? Well, first off, let's randomly select people. How else could we do this? Something is called cluster sampling. And if you listen to 1.4 it talks about the different methods of sampling, that how we do things. Cluster samplings, when we take a group from this section and group from this section, a group from this section, instead of just randomly 1, 2, 3, we could take like a small group. And that small group out of this area, instead of just taking one home, let's say we take 4 out of this neighborhood, 4 out of that neighborhood, 4 out of another neighborhood. Those 4 people are randomly selected, or those 4 houses are randomly selected. But that's called cluster sampling. Somebody is getting needy again. All right, so Cold Stone. They wanted to know, out of 150, we only get 4. Guess what? That is a non-response. Hands down. How do we correct it? Send the survey again. Offer free ice cream. There's your incentive. There's 2 reasons. You tell me I'm going to get a free scoop at Cold Stone. Heck yeah, I'll answer your survey. I'm a sucker for ice cream. I'll admit it. All right, so number 4. What do we have? We have a response bias. Remember, response biases comes in many ways. Do you think someone showing up in a uniform at your door to ask you a survey might sway your opinion a little bit? Yes, it can, very much so. So when they sent uniformed police officers door to door, there's your response bias. They were trying to get you, because if you got 2 police officers standing there and they ask you if you support the police department, you can tell them no. You can sit there and tell them, no, you're all corrupt. No, because you're sitting here in the back of your mind thinking, man, I don't want to get busted for anything. I don't want to get a ticket the next time oh yeah, yeah, no, but that's why. All right. So we may not be honest. We have an officer standing there asking us our opinion on the local police force. It's called survival. But how can we correct it? Trained interviewers, remember? Or can't afford that, plain clothes people. Don't tell them you're with the police force. Use plain names, right? So let's talk example 5. Benefits of using trained interviewers. I've already kind of pretty much said it more than once. We get better results, more honest results. Not always. There's less bias. B, pros and cons, the telephone interviews. Why do it take place at dinner time in the early evening? Most people are home. So, pro, more people at home. Con, you call me during dinner time or I have everybody sitting down to dinner around the table together, I may not answer, or I'm going to be upset or agitated that you called and disrupted dinner. Also, I just may not answer. I'm at dinner. I'll turn the phone off. Why is a high response rate desired? Well, we get better results. How can I go back to the 150 people and only 4 people responded? Is that enough to run a survey on? No, I can't. So we have to have enough people respond for us to say we get good results. All right. So we will get, if we don't have a high response, we can get people that are underrepresented. And the 4 that do respond, like the 150, they are strongly opinionated because they did answer the survey. So in other words, we get underrepresentation and and then the strongly opinionated are the ones that do answer. We don't get the more softer or moderate people. All right. Last question. Why is order of questions and choices important to sample surveys? Helps prevent bias. Talked about it. Remember, if we ask them randomly, keeps us from persuading you on your answer. Again, that is a trick that a lot of surveyors take. Now I'm going to bring up a survey that if you don't want to hear about, go ahead and in the video now, because this survey is what they did that a couple presidents even touted, is that the statement was about rape, or more specifically how they phrase it, sexual assault. And the statement was, President Obama touted it, and it came out right at the end of President Bush, and he touted it. But the survey was about sexual assault. And sexual assault, they stated, 1 in 4 people were sexually assaulted. Now, I come from a small rural town, and I'm sitting here thinking, man, the cities have to be horrendous because that just doesn't go around here. Well, it was the order of the questions, because when I got to looking at the survey, they were guiding your answers, because the questions that they asked prior to the final question that got that 1 in 4, what they were asking, has everybody ever hugged you? Has anybody ever hugged you that you felt uncomfortable? Well, a lot of people are saying, well, I got that creepy Aunt Millie that, the one that has the butterscotch and she smells like mothballs. That's the kind of stuff that plays in the back of our minds. Well, yeah, I mean, really not. I've had people want to come and hug me, and I'm real good for doing the side hug where I turn my shoulder. Yeah. And I'll hug sideways instead of doing the full hug. And I get it. Some people are huggers, but I mean, this is some of the questions that they were asking. So they're already getting you think about all the times that, yeah, well. And all of a sudden, the final question came is, have you ever experienced an unwanted touch? Now, by now, we've very clarified what is unwanted touch, but back then they didn't. But they played out about a dozen questions that you're sitting here already thinking about all these awkward moments in your life. And then when they hit you with this, well, yeah. this is my meaning with the order of questions that we can persuade you to answer the way we want. I was not enthused with their method because sexual assault is, before anybody gets, and it's the reason I tell people before I mention this, if you don't, turn it off. The reason being is that they took a serious thing and they downplayed it, all in the want of making it appear more serious than what it was. So how do we know what the true at that time? It's they've done better because they got busted. I'll be honest. The surveys are better now because they got busted on how they did it. But these are some of the tricks that they've done. The part that upset me on it is again, they took a serious topic and twisted it and downplayed it to where it made it like when you actually thought about the questions previously and looked at all the individual questions, the last question, you couldn't help but answer yes. And I was shocked that they didn't get more than 1 in 4. That is how good they were with the leading questions. But this is an example of how we introduce bias. Remember, if you watch my first video, I said one of the things being a research statistician that we were taught, what do you want the research to say? And I'll tell you how to twist it. So hopefully this is opening your eyes to some of the surveys you read and see now. You're starting to think, well, hold it. Question them. Question a little bit. If it doesn't sound right, call BS. Right? Good luck, guys. I'll see you in the next video.